what's up? Sinisa, Super Bad Estrada here, and I just want to give a huge special shout out to the relay. Thank you so much for all of the continuous support, and thank you for all of the support during and after and before every single fight.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Said she wants to fight Natasha for her old belts, and Natasha said yeah, she'd do that. So I think that's the most realistic fight that there is out there for Natasha now. I think that's a huge fight. Whether we have to go to America, Natasha's very keen in fighting either in Vegas or Madison Square Garden. Katie Taylor's another option. If Katie wanted to come and fight on Sky or whatever, that'd be an option as well. So listen, they're the fights. That's what Tasha wants.
Since it doesn't look like we're going to be seeing Shields versus Marshall 2 next year, on the premise that Clarissa wants to fight in America, but Clarissa doesn't have a broadcast partner in America, and Sky isn't going to pay to do a fight in the United States when they're based out of the United Kingdom, Shields versus Jonas.
It becomes a hot topic again. You see Tesco Joe saying in plain English that Natasha's open to the fight, and she's willing to come to America.
While she might be open to fighting in America, I don't think she's open to fighting on the cheap. I think it will take a substantial amount of money to get her in the ring with somebody like Clarissa Shields and get her on a plane.
It's almost silly that we're only one fight away from crowning an undisputed junior middleweight champion, and it's not even a conversation.
There are only two champions at junior middleweight, and both of them are fighters that moved up in weight in order to achieve that championship status. I'm talking about Natasha Jonas. I'm talking about Terry Harper.
Now that they don't have Mary Spencer breathing down their necks, knocking on their doors, looking for a world title shot, a world title opportunity, a high-risk, low-reward opponent before
is a non-factor here today. A non-factor here and now after having suffered her first professional loss at the hands of former champion from Belgium, Femke Hermans. They don't have to worry about Mary Spencer anymore.
She's not their problem, at least not right now.
Even if Femke Hermans is, they might view a Femke Hermans fight as a more manageable fight, perhaps a more manageable situation.
But the gist of it is they're not pressed for time. They're not under duress. They're not
under pressure, and it really is the best fight that you can hope to make at 154 pounds. Joe Gallagher mentioned a Shields fight, which I'm not a fan of, and a Katie Taylor fight. Katie Taylor is not an option for Natasha Jonas.
She's not going to Sky.
She's not fighting Natasha. We all know what the plan is. The plan is for Katie Taylor to take on Amanda Serrano in Ireland for the second time in the second quarter of next year.
Katie Taylor is not an option for Natasha Jonas, and the Clarissa Shields fight.
There are a few problems with that fight. Even if Natasha Jonas is willing to come to America in order to do it, who's going to bankroll it?
Who's going to pay for the show? Who's going to promote it? Where's the money going to come from?
Shields versus Jonas is a bigger fight in the United Kingdom than it would be in the United States. That's just the truth. That's just reality. Clarissa Shields is not a big draw in America.
You'd sooner sell out that fight at the O2 Arena than you would at Madison Square Garden or the MGM Grand in Vegas.
That's reality. And without a broadcast partner to pick up the fight, pay for it.
Fairly certain Natasha Jonas, while she's willing to fight Clarissa, she's not willing to fight her on the cheap. She's not willing to travel.
I don't think she's going to travel to the United States to make peanuts on the dollar opposite the ring somebody like a Clarissa Shields. Fiscally, it makes no sense. The only place that fight makes sense is in the United Kingdom.
But for whatever reason, Clarissa doesn't want to go there. At least not for a Marshall rematch. Would she be willing to change her mind, change her stance on that for a Jonas fight?
I don't know. Clarissa Shields very recently stated that she's only going to have one boxing match in the coming year, and the rest of the year she'll spend it in the world of mixed martial arts. We talked about that in my previous video.
That one fight could be a Jonas fight if she's willing to travel, but if she's not,
I don't know what the hell is going to happen.
Are Team Jonas being needlessly stubborn here? Are they driving too hard a bargain?
The only fight that makes sense for Natasha Jonas, as far as I'm concerned, is a Terry Harper rematch. Terry Harper, she's not having any luck with Natasha, so she's looking at a Breakus fight.
And that could happen.
There are no political or promotional constraints that would prevent such a fight from happening.
And Cecilia Breakus' last fight opposite the ring Portillo, that was on DAZN, so she's within arm's reach.
Terry's looking at Cecilia, and Natasha is looking at Clarissa.
And when it comes to Natasha and Clarissa, I'd wager that in order to get Natasha here stateside, you'd likely have to pay her more than what you paid Marie-Eve Dicaire to come down from Canada. You might have to even pay her more than you paid Christina Hammer.
She's got a major network and a major promoter behind her. She's not going to fight on the cheap. She doesn't have to. So in order to do the fight here stateside, you're going to need the money to come from somewhere, whether it's a ESPN or a Black Prime.
Somebody's got to pick up the tab, and it's going to be a big one.
Otherwise, Clarissa's going to have to pack her bags and go back to merry old England.
Because money don't grow on trees, and Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube comments don't pay for fights. Money does.
To do it in America, you need someone who's willing to take the financial risk of putting on the show in America whilst simultaneously satisfying the fighter's financial demands.
And that's the gist of it.
In men's heavyweight news, Robert Garcia stands firm that Joshua needs to train in the United States, a sentiment that I happen to agree with. I too feel that Anthony needs to expand his horizons, get out of his own comfort zone, get out of his own way.
Veteran coach Robert Garcia clarified that the heavyweight contender Anthony Joshua personally advised him about his plans to travel to the United States to visit other trainers.
However, AJ never actually told him that they would no longer work together. A couple of weeks ago, AJ called to tell me that he would come to the United States to meet with other trainers to see how he feels training with them. Garcia told Izquierdazo, but he never told me, I'm not working with you anymore. He never told me, I don't like your style.
I thought Anthony showed improvement from the first Usyk fight to the second. I did think he fought a better fight in the second fight than he did in the first.
But if he's still looking to make additions to his corner, it has to be because he himself isn't satisfied, and why would he be? He didn't secure the W.
So is another trainer, another addition to the corner. Is that really the answer?
Even if Garcia doesn't understand why Joshua is changing trainers again, he respects his decision. I don't know why, but he has his management team, and they decided that, Garcia said. I respect him, but what I respect the most is that he called me beforehand to tell me that he would be in the United States visiting other trainers. According to Garcia, there are no bad feelings towards Joshua, and he wishes him good luck.
He's gonna need it.
As a trainer, I don't have to feel bad about it, Garcia said. He is not the first and will not be the last that decides to get a new coach. I've had fighters that came from other trainers, and I've accepted them. When that happens, I call their former trainer to tell them that his fighter is working in my gym. When a fighter loses, he looks for another trainer. And if that is the case with Anthony, I'm not angry. I'm in agreement with him. Garcia insists that regardless of who his new coach is, AJ needs to train in the United States. Even if he doesn't train with me, I would like him to come to train in the United States, Garcia explains. This is where he needs to have a camp, to change his routine, to leave his comfort zone.
I think that's exactly what the doctor ordered. He needs to change his decorum.
Come to America, smell the pollution, take it in, get some pussy, eat some pussy.
Eat from a food truck.
Anthony Joshua is a business, a multi-million-dollar business, even here today coming off of 2 consecutive losses, 3 overall.
But let's not forget that this is the hurt business. Let's not forget that you don't reach new levels staying in your comfort zone.
Being comfortable, you don't excel doing that. You don't grow doing that. It's in being uncomfortable where change happens.
It is.
Significant change. Even if he doesn't train with me, I would like him to come and train in the United States. This is where he needs to have a camp, to change his routine, to leave his comfort zone, where he will get more responsibility. That's what I recommend to them. Anthony needs a gym with other fighters, other champions, more examples, more people motivating him that will cheer him up. I think that someone training just by himself, always in his room, working without an external motivation, that may be affecting.
It's a lot like working out in a home setting with equipment at home as opposed to working out in an open space, in a gym, in front of other people.
You're less likely to be seen lacking in front of others. You'll kick it up a notch. Garcia feels that it is highly possible that AJ will relocate his permanent training camp to the United States, especially if he hires a busy trainer like Derek James, who works with Errol Spence, Frank Martin, and Jermel Trullo. I feel that he is taking the decision about coming to the United States to relocate his training camp, Garcia said, because if he came to talk with trainers such as Derek James, who is very busy here in the United States, I don't think that AJ's plan is to take him to Europe. Maybe he is planning to stay here, and I will be happy to see him here in the United States, even if he's not working with me. AJ needs a change, a completely new change to what he is not used to. We had a good plan, and we had our chances in the fight, Garcia said. We couldn't win, but we have to keep in mind that we were fighting perhaps the best fighter, pound for pound, in the world. Usyk is a great fighter. It was a challenge for me to have my first fight with Anthony against a fighter like Usyk. We did everything we could. We had a good moment in the fight, but we couldn't win it. And Garcia doesn't close the door on working with Joshua in the future. If they decide to train with someone else, I wish them good luck, Garcia said. And if they decide to train with me and would like to come to train in California, that would be good, because I feel that would work great for Joshua.
It might be. Robert Garcia mentioned that Anthony Joshua was considering working with Derek James, but Derek isn't the only trainer in the running. There is also former fighter, former champion, former pound-for-pound alum, Roy Jones Jr. He's in the running as well.
Roy, who feels strongly that he's got a lot to offer Anthony Joshua as a trainer. We spoke, and I do have a plan for him, Jones told Boxing Social. I haven't told him yet, but if he likes the way that we get along in the gym, then for me, any fighter he fights is going to be a big fight anyway. But you've got to go with guys who are not quite as good as Alexander Usyk or Tyson Fury yet. We need 2 good fights to get yourself back into motion, and they'll be good fights. They won't be no stroll fights. They'll be good fights.
I happen to agree with that sentiment as well. Anthony Joshua shouldn't place pressure on himself when he's on the rebound. He's got to do what's best for him. So you put anybody else and anything else on the back burner.
2 fights sounds about right. In order to get his feet wet and break in a new trainer, then we go after either Usyk or Fury, whoever wins. But we do need 2 good fights to get him back, and I already got 2 fights in my mind that I would want. But I've got to talk to him and make sure that he is in agreement. In a recent interview with ID Boxing, Joshua was not fully sold on the idea of hiring Jones as his next trainer. I respect Roy highly. What a man, what a talent, what a fighter. But that being said, that doesn't mean that just because of that, he is qualified to train me. That is where it ends, really. But I'd love to see his work, and we go from there, Joshua said.
Some truth in there. Not every great fighter makes a great trainer. Not every great trainer was a great fighter.
Jones, who also spoke to ID Boxing, believes that he can bring a lot to the table. What can I not bring? I'm one of the greatest to ever do it. I did whatever I wanted to do, so I can show you how to do whatever I want you to, because I did whatever I wanted to when I got ready, and who was going to stop me? Nobody.
Now, to those 2 guys, those 2 names, Derek James and Roy Jones Jr., while Roy was a pound-for-pound fighter,
that has very little to do with his ability to train fighters. Out of those 2 guys, Derek James and Roy Jones Jr., Derek is the more experienced trainer, working with several fighters and several champions.
Roy hasn't trained any champions.
It's not a knock on him. I love the fucking guy, but I don't know that he's the most qualified guy for this assignment.
If it boils down to going with Roy or going with Derek, I think Anthony would be better off going with Derek.
And that doesn't even mean that I think Derek is the very best fit for Anthony, just a better fit, perhaps, than Roy.
I don't know, man. We'll see what happens.
And finally, in men's light heavyweight news, per a tweet from Fight Hub TV, undisputed is the priority, says Dmitry Bivol. His main focus is a fight with the winner of Beterbiev versus Yarde for undisputed over a Canelo Alvarez rematch. We've heard that before. We've talked about it before. And Dimitri's tune hasn't changed.
And I share in that sentiment. I would much rather see Dmitry take on the winner of Beterbiev versus Yarde than see him share the ring with Canelo Alvarez for a second time. I think it's about time we got that unification match at 175 pounds. But I've said it many times. If by some chance Anthony Yarde pulls the upset and he beats Artur, I don't think that Frank is going to be interested in putting him in there with Dmitry Bivol,
as his fighter would already be in possession of most of the belts at this weight.
For the sake of the division and for the sake of the undisputed title fight, it's more likely to happen if Artur wins than Anthony.
Though before it even comes to that, we may see Dmitry Bivol at least one more time.
We might. That fight between Artur and Anthony is set to go down in the first quarter of next year.
Don't forget that Callum Smith is in the run, and don't forget that Callum Smith is WBC's mandatory challenger for the winner of that fight.
Whoever it ends up being.
In a nutshell, while Dmitry Bivol might prioritize the winner of that fight over a rematch with Canelo, in all likelihood, that's not going to be his next fight. As Everything Boxing tweeted, Eddie Hearn clarified that Joshua Buatsi is still under contract with Matchroom, and Bivol versus Buatsi is the one they'll attempt to make next. Buatsi versus Callum Smith is also an option.
I don't think Joshua Buatsi beats either of those guys.
The more winnable fight, in my opinion, would be the Callum Smith fight, though all the same, I'm not really convinced Joshua Buatsi.
Callum's a big guy, very experienced, more experienced as a professional than Joshua Buatsi. He's a former champion.
Having moved up from super middleweight up to light heavyweight, he's not one of these guys that lost something on the way up. No, he does seem a stronger puncher at light heavyweight than he did down there at super middleweight. It's likely because he's got such a big frame.
Doesn't have to drain himself anymore to make weight. Light heavyweight is a better, healthier weight for him. Both Callum Smith and Joshua Buatsi's best punches are their straight punches.
But I feel like Callum Smith is a little bit more prolific with his jab, more prolific overall than Joshua Buatsi is. And I'd pick Callum to beat Joshua Buatsi if Joshua decides to fight him instead of Dimitri Bivol.
And I'd pick Dimitri to beat the both of them.
Dimitri is better overall, better in every way, tactically, technically. I think he beats both Joshua Buatsi and Callum Smith, and you have to wonder, who does Dimitri Bivol end up fighting in the mean in-between time? Because I don't get the sense he's going to get immediate access to the winner of Beterbiev versus Yarde. In an ideal world he would, but things are seldom ever ideal in the world of boxing.
Callum Smith is very close to challenging the winner of that fight, the winner of Beterbiev versus Yarde, for 3 of the 4 alphabet titles. He might elect to wait for the winner of that fight.
If he does, then the people at Matchroom might move to make Bivol versus Buatsi.
Could break down a lot of ways. We could end up seeing Buatsi versus Smith, or Buatsi versus Bivol, or
Bivol versus Smith.
Yeah, I could go for that, but in a nutshell, I don't get the sense that Dimitri Bivol's very next fight is going to be the winner of Beterbiev versus Yarde. As much as I would like to see that,
you also have to factor in extenuating circumstances. Artur Beterbiev, if he wins, at least historically, has been an injury-prone fighter. Even in fights...
That Joe Smith Jr. fight didn't last long. It didn't even make it to the midway point, and he still needed surgery afterwards.
Who's to say that he don't make short work of Anthony Yarde, but still incurs an injury of some kind? I mean, he ain't no spring chicken. In a nutshell, there's enough there, perhaps too much, going on, that I don't think Bivol versus the winner of that fight is next.
If Anthony upsets the apple cart for Artur, or if Artur beats Anthony like everybody expects him to, but he needs a surgery, he's injured or something like that.
Tack on that Callum Smith is the mandatory challenger for the winner of that fight.
As much as I'd like to see it, I don't think Bivol versus the winner of that fight is next.